Oh, there it is. Hey, what's up, everybody? How y'all doing? So, it is time. It's been a while. I don't want the volume to be too loud. So I'm gonna do this a lot more often. I'm gonna stream to my YouTube family, one, because I've been a little bit of a fraud. You know, I've been a fraud when it comes to uploading on YouTube. Now, I do have a video recording, it's cooking, so obviously in terms of the uploads, but I thought at least let me do a stream on Twitch and a stream on YouTube, so I'll definitely see both of you guys. Of course, for the people who want to be on just YouTube, we're gonna be here.
We're brothers, right? That's
you
right.
know, shout out to
We're brothers.
Tall Mo with the 3 months. We're brothers.
I'm not arguing with you.
Appreciate you, my boy. Appreciate you. I know. I'm sorry. I've kept you starving and hungry in the streets. Luckily, you have other great content creators to keep you, you know, well nourished. Excuse me. A little gas in there. Shout out to brother Abdel, my GOAT, bro. Real life homie. 28 months of loyalty. Appreciate you, King. Of course. I hope there is a let me put the alerts so we have YouTube alerts as well. So let me just set those up really quickly for y'all, because I want YouTube to get their own little bit of love, you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? I don't know how to fix it up, but I guess we'll figure that one out later. There should be a way to do it. There should be. Nah, there isn't. All right, well, you know, it is what it is. So as you know, Brother Drizzt has come out with the Whole Cake Island version of the downfall of One Piece. Now, as you guys know, Drizzt is my brother, and I love Drizzt dearly. So there's no ill will for me at all. However, if there's one thing that I know about Brother Drizzt, is that his disdain for Sanji is very real. It is very aggressive. And I'm very curious to see what his thoughts are and how he articulates it, because I've heard a lot of them. But I feel like it's good for all of us, you know, to see these criticisms and then see how we feel about them. See how we feel about them. Counteract them as we go along. Now, I'm not going to go through the whole thing because it's a 3-hour video, but we're going through the main Sanji portions, and I think that's what we need to do. So in this case, let me just do a quick little window share. Oh, this playlist slapping too. Okay, yeah, there it is. We got some lo-fi in the background. Hey, okay. All right, cool. So here we are. So we're here. Now, let me... Do I have to full screen this? I guess I'm going to have to, aren't I? All right, so let's full screen this, right? And then we shall, right? I think there's a crop I need to fix, right? I think there is. Hold on, let me fix it. Let me fix it. Reset. There it is. And now you see nothing but a giant Yonji. There we go. Perfect. Can you guys see the screen just fine? Can you guys hear me just fine? Is the music too loud? You guys let me know, of course. There's no chapter tonight. you switched here. YouTube feels wrong. I understand, Aria. I understand. Everyone's like, nah, I like Twitch more. Well, you know, for the YouTube people only, obviously, we're on Twitch and YouTube. If you're not following my Twitch, follow me on Twitch. If you're here on YouTube, we're perfect. Plus, please do the Blackbeard laugh. I'll do the Blackbeard laugh for a $20 donation, brother. That's it. I'm Hollywood now. I don't do that laugh. My throat's already hurting. I'm a little under the weather. So
we're brothers, right?
I'm gonna need some bands.
We're brothers.
You're brothers. We're brothers. Shout out to Spiritual Goat. But my man went from Prime to Tier 1. He put money on the line for the family. Spiritual Goat, appreciate you. Welcome to the family. Ghost Card. Shout out, 23 months of loyalty. Appreciate you, King. Let's get started with this video. So let's pause the music and let's see. Right, so
to resort to teaming up with a Yonko to take over a territory.
This is all Sanji, right?
World's strongest factions.
Okay.
Whatever. Judge even says to Sanji that Yonji is strong. So If in Judge's world, Yonji is strong, even though he's ass. If a failure like Sanji is able to mess him up,
okay.
what does that say about Yonji? And what does that say about...
Hold on. Before I do that, let me, I gotta switch something because the way it's playing through YouTube right now, people who will clip it won't be able to hear it. Maybe from the start. I mean, we could play it from the start. We could. And I hope I didn't miss any super chats. So if I miss any super chats, I'm gonna check. Don't worry, YouTube section. I will be keeping a close eye. But let me just fix one little sound issue really quickly. It's nothing crazy. You should just go to the default. I'm assuming, yeah. Do that, yeah. And then
Sanji.
Perfect. Okay, good.
I'm stronger. I'm smarter. I'm better. I am better. I'm not some weak-kneed fucking crybaby that goes around fucking apologizing all the time. And why the fuck would you want me to be?
The answer's pretty obvious, right? And things like this just keep happening, which don't affect Judge or the Vinsmokes. Judge sees and comments on the fact that Sanji can use Haki, which again tells you a bit of what Sanji has accomplished with no raid suit. But
Right.
that's not all. Let's talk a bit about the relevance of Sanji using Diablo Jambe against Judge. The community and fan perception of Diablo Jambe was completely different prior to Whole
Creek for the
Cake and
$2
Wano.
donation. Appreciate you, brother.
We all thought that Diablo Jambe was a
On
liberty
YouTube.
Oda was taking with his story. It was an ability that had some cartoon logic. Sanji spins around so
We're
fast
brothers,
that his
right?
leg
That's
catches
right.
fire. You know, it makes sense.
Brothers.
And at
You're
some
brothers.
point, Sanji
We're
stopped
brothers.
spinning
I'm not
to do
arguing with you.
Diablo Jambe. It was commonly speculated
Appreciate
that
you.
Oda
Eliminated
did
343
this
for
because
the
he
Prime
didn't
subscription.
want to draw Sanji spinning every single time he used it. Or Sanji just found a way to do it without spinning in the time skip, and that indicated some mastery over the ability.
Exactly.
Others even bought into the explanation that Sanji gives to the audience, which is that his passion is so hot that it's related to his flames and all that. Once again, this is cartoon logic that you can understand, but Wano recontextualizes the entire origin of Diablo Jambe. Queen tells us that it's impossible for normal humans to do what Sanji does.
Right.
Sanji's explanation about his passion is put into question, and the entire fight against Queen is about Sanji's Germa abilities awakening because of the raid suit, implying that Diablo Jambe could have been a part of that the whole time. Queen's first reaction to seeing Diablo Jambe is to relate it to the Vinsmokes. As soon as Judge sees Sanji using Diablo Jambe, this should have, at the minimum, created a subplot of the Vinsmokes rethinking their conclusion that Sanji wasn't genetically altered.
So this is something I do agree with, right? Why did Judge not react at all to Sanji using Diablo Jambe? He didn't even question it. You know, I feel like one of the things I didn't like, what's up Vegeta, what's up GGMU? One of the things that really annoyed me about Germa in particular was just their refusal to acknowledge that Sanji was as strong as them and not stronger. You know, so that's something I agree with. Donatello with the $10. How would you feel if Elbaf was an arc of Usopp and it was also where he died? I think Usopp dying in Elbaf would be wild. And I'd like him to meet Yasopp first, unless he meets Yasopp. That's the only reason why I'd ever let that happen. Or I'd ever be okay with that. Is this like, we're gonna find out.
Regardless of what the real answer may be, how Judge can look at Sanji and not come to the same conclusion as Queen, or even think about it, seems like a plot hole.
No chapter this
Had
week.
Judge acted on the knowledge that he should have, it changes the story of Whole Cake and how Germa interact with Sanji,
What's up, Dante?
and Sanji's role in the arc, and the themes that the arc attempts to build, which is pretty big. As these two are fighting, Sanji tells Judge that once the tea party is over, he's leaving.
Okay.
Judge says something that should be obvious, which is that Big Mom won't allow it. Sanji responds by saying he doesn't care what happens to them.
No,
He's
I did not
here
get
to
spoiled
protect
on
Zeph
film, right?
and the Straw Hats.
I saw, like,
At
one
this
spoiler,
point in
but that's about
time,
it.
this is Sanji's actual plan. This isn't a ruse. The conclusion of the fight ends up being a bit forced. Had Oda not held Sanji back and made him lose because of semantics, Sanji would have won and beat Judge. Judge wins through the use of the wall tactic. Now, winning through semantics isn't a bad thing, if Sanji didn't get to do anything the entire time, but as we've covered, Sanji has done things already that don't uphold the persona the Vinsmokes are trying to maintain of him, which is where this thing goes awry. The more logical thing would have been to hold Sanji back the entire arc to justify Germa's belief, so there's some writing coherency for as long as possible until you dispel the illusion.
Okay.
But this is probably the biggest frustration with Sanji and his role with Germa to begin with.
So that's basically what I was harping on. I think one of the most annoying things about Whole Cake Island was the fact that I knew Sanji was stronger than all of them. But he never got to... they never acknowledged it, and they were just kind of blind and ignorant to it the whole time. Like, they used cheap tactics the entire time to stop Sanji from folding them. Like, bro, did you not see what happened to Yonji? Judge stood no chance against Sanji. 0 chance. Ichiji got knocked straight to the wall, and all of a sudden, bro, I don't know. I don't know, man. I don't know. But I'm saying here, and this is in line with what Drizzt is saying, I feel like Drizzt is saying that it would have been so much sweeter of a moment if they had realized they were wrong the entire time about Sanji being a failure. Because they were wrong. Sanji was stronger than all of them, so he's literally not a failure, but they're too idiot. They're too stupid to see it. And I know we're supposed to hate him. I agree. We're supposed to hate him. But I feel like that would have been a good way instead of like the table moment. The table moment was an
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I mean, I get
Yes,
it.
sir.
Yo,
Yes, sir.
lemonade with the 15.
Start laughing, boss.
1567. I mean, I guess we'll take it. I guess we'll take it. Turn the volume down. It's the volume warning. Mugiwara! There you go. That's all you get. All right, we're good. I got neighbors. I can't be doing that too much. It's also almost 10 o'clock. He said I'm Canadian. Fair enough. 20 CAD. Oh, he tried to use, you know what? Next time, 25 CAD. Next time. We're doing it. I said dollars, brother. He tried to be slick. All right. Anywho, what's up, Anime Lately? How you doing, brother? Shice DJ? It is Shice DJ. All right. Let's get back to the video.
Truth about Sanji is always ignored.
Better. I am better.
Shortly after his loss, Sanji gets handcuffed by Reiju. The next time we see him, he is having dinner with his family at the Nazi table.
I love the
and we're treated to another
I love the Hunter x Hunter background music. I love it.
antagonistic scene with the Vinsmokes where Sanji defends Colette. And it all ends with Judge telling Sanji that it's thanks to Big Mom's intelligence that they found out about Zeph, and basically they threaten Sanji with Zeph's life if he acts up again. This is what ends up putting Sanji into a real bind, which is accentuated by the beating he gets for trying to confront his brothers over Colette. At this point, we've seen several scenes so far of Sanji being restrained, and it's tied together with his flashback. By the time that we're out of the flashback, Sanji is being treated once again by Reiju. And Reiju tells Sanji that what's happening to him doesn't involve her and to not expect help. This is all mega cap.
I agree.
You might expect at this point that maybe Reiju's dialogue and her tsundere-esque nature with Sanji.
So I agree with the abusive family aspect. Excuse me, I'm eating scallion pancakes. They're fire. But one thing I would say is that I don't think Sanji has any plans to reconcile or change his family. I think Sanji could have put them in their place. Yeah, that's what I was hoping he'd do.
Sanji might be leading somewhere, because having her act this way doesn't make any sense if it doesn't serve a purpose. After Sanji is bandaged up, we get his confrontation with Luffy and Nami while the Vinsmokes are on their way to meet Big Mom. This will be our next big talking point for Sanji. The conflict here is specifically Straw Hat centric, which makes it a lot more interesting than what's considered the average for One Piece, which is the civilians are being oppressed and need help trope. This is more reminiscent of the pre-time skip when a majority of the storylines were centered around different crewmates. Let's talk about this scene in a vacuum. meaning that we're only going to talk about what's happening in the arc up to this point in time and what started in Zoe, as if the rest of the story didn't matter, and then we'll bring in context later. The writing flaw in this scene is that there is no in-arc reason for Sanji to ever lay his hands on Luffy, all of which could have been fixed with a single addition to the arc, but because this addition is missing, it makes all the difference when it comes to sympathizing and justifying Sanji's actions. Prior to the Luffy vs. Sanji conflict, Oda had been doing a good job at limiting Sanji's options and making him a slave to his circumstances. Zeph was threatened if he didn't act and go along with the marriage, and his options of running away were limited because of the handcuffs. His back was almost completely against the wall. What Oda didn't account for, however, somehow, was that there was nothing set in place within the arc to not allow Sanji to seek help or talk to his friends if they were to arrive on the island. When Luffy flings himself onto the cat carriage, Sanji responds with immediate violence. The Vinsmokes did not make any demands of Sanji to exile and violently remove his friends. And Big Mom wasn't involved yet at this point in the arc either, so there are no restrictions from her. The Vinsmokes themselves are unmoved by the situation. Yonji only chimes in after Sanji hits Luffy, and even then, Sanji says he'll handle it himself. There is nothing stopping Sanji from getting out of the carriage, walking over to Luffy, and saying, "Hey, Yug, what are you guys doing here? Oh no, listen, here are my circumstances. Stay low and hidden. I'll figure something out. Don't get in trouble."
Hey, where's the freaking
Gabagoo?
And even if there was something written into the story to force Sanji...
Great clip usage. Great clip usage. However, I guess I never really had a problem with Sanji not saying anything and resorting to violence just because I understood it. I get the criticism, but I guess that wasn't really that big of an issue for me. That's just me personally, though.
Into an altercation with Luffy, like, say, Judge ordering Sanji to hurt them, which probably should have happened considering Judge was watching Sanji closely to see what he'd do. There is still nothing stopping Sanji from communicating the truth while fighting Luffy, hiding it from the people watching and then delivering a message to Luffy through the violence. This arc does go out of its way to comment on Luffy's ability to sense others' emotional state, so this would have worked fine. And in the unlikely event that Luffy is somehow too stupid to get what's going on, Nami is there as well and could be a secondary source of interpretation. Sanji beating the shit out of Luffy is unwarranted at the end of the day, but despite the writing not being ideal, I'm going to give this scene props. Oda's intent from this was to cause drama, emotion, and conflict, and that's exactly what it does. It's an emotional scene that still conveys its power past its writing flaws. That's how much potential it had. When Sanji is rolling away on the carriage and Luffy gives his speech, yeah, that hits.
It does.
And had everything from this scene been handled properly, then I'd have nothing negative overall to say about it. I'd live with the miss from Oda and take the positives from it. But the accountability that Oda writes into this scene is completely shit on later in the arc, and because that's the case, this scene has become bad and a stain on Sanji's character. This is not a good scene anymore, but I'll dive into the details on this soon.
Okay.
As Sanji and Germa get closer to the castle, they happen to pass by the enraged army, which was sent out to attack Luffy and Nami, who are kind of helpless out there in the field.
And Sanji follow who's selling
sees
food stamps,
and hears
911,
this, and then chooses
919.
to ignore it. Sanji,
Yes, this is a
ignoring
YouTube video.
the clear implications of an entire army going to attack Luffy and Nami, goes against his goal of protecting him, which doesn't make any sense. Sanji left Luffy in a vulnerable state, knowing he spent the entire night fighting a commander, and he knew that Luffy was going to make do on his promise to sit there. Realistically, Sanji should be freaking out, and double because he doesn't know that the enraged army's goal is to capture and not to kill them. I don't think Oda should have even included the Vinsmoke seeing the enraged army. They should have come at a different time after the Vinsmokes went to the castle, or went a different route to the field where
That
Luffy
is
and Nami
interesting.
were.
That is interesting.
Later on in the day, Sanji meets up with Pudding and really starts to open up with her about his circumstances and essentially admits defeat and agrees to the marriage. The discussion between Pudding and Sanji here is quite good. This is the first time you've seen Sanji emotionally vulnerable in basically the whole series.
Yeah.
And this is the first scene of its kind in the story. A sad, suspicious, romantic scene that's juxtaposed nicely with Luffy and Nami's fight against the enraged army. This was a great composition of panels. Soon after, Sanji begins inhaling hypercopium and strikes the deal with Big Mom to let the Straw Hats go.
Hypercopium.
For some reason, even after Luffy's speech, after the enraged army, Sanji is hoping and praying that Luffy and company just leave the island. Then Sanji spends time trying to convince and justify his decision to sacrifice himself, which makes him lean more into the idea of falling in love with Pudding and just letting everything work out somehow. Something happens here which should have set off alarms in Sanji's head, even in denial like he is. It's pretty ridiculous that Sanji just ignores this and then continues to move on. One of the guards that looks like Bobbin's deranged cousin gives a report to Sanji saying that a few of the Straw Hats have been captured,
Right.
and the others are running around the castle causing trouble. This tells Sanji that something weird is going on. Big Mom never told Sanji that she was going to capture the Straw Hats and hold them prisoner. And the fact that some of the Straw Hats have made it all the way into the castle means that it's easier for Sanji to verify and confront them on what's going on.
Right.
They are very close. At the very least, Sanji knows that things aren't going the way they're supposed to, but he continues to ignore everything. Following this, we get the Pudding third eye reveal and her rant about Sanji being a fuckboy. This causes Sanji to turn on his Blink-182 playlist and cry in the rain as Reiju is getting her mind wiped and her body placed into the medical room. The doctor who is in the room with Reiju says to keep her there overnight and to inform the Vinsmokes that she'll be held there.
It is kind of
There's no
strange
reason
that
given
the
as to
Straw
what
Hats
the
did get in
excuse for
prison
her
and Sanji
being
kind of
injured
just, you know.
is, and a super soldier like Reiju being in the med bay should cause suspicion as soon as it's heard by the Vinsmokes, but weirdly enough, this information is never passed on to them. It's not acknowledged, and it seems like Oda forgot he said this, which is odd, but maybe not as odd as the stretch made in the believability that Pudding could completely subdue Reiju. Pudding, as we come to find, is extremely weak. She only had a candy-jacketed pistol as her weapon. It's hard to buy into the idea that a single pistol and seemingly a single shot from it can bring down Reiju to the point where Pudding can drag her into a room.
You know what happens with
If
them
this was
off-screen
Yoji's
guns?
bum
Off-screen
ass,
guns
then
are
maybe
broken.
I
Y'all
buy
should
it,
know
but
this already.
Reiju is hyped up as one of
Off-screen
the
guns are
strongest Vinsmokes, and we do see her tussle with Smoothie to the point where Smoothie comments on how dangerous she is. One bullet should not be enough to take her down, raid suit or no raid suit. If Pudding was made out to be a more competent opponent in combat, or we got to see a more potent ability from her that is good at subduing people, then it'd all be fine. But it's pretty obvious Oda was just trying to set this scene up and didn't really care about the logistics of it. Reiju wakes up and Sanji's there to bring her up to speed on what happened. Apparently, Reiju was sniffing around the palace because she was suspicious of Pudding. This entire justification feels a bit weak because Oda off-screened everything that would be relevant for Reiju to make that
be
conclusion.
suspicious. Okay.
Sanji's first meeting with Pudding happened off-screen, which also shouldn't have happened.
Okay.
Why the hell does Oda keep off-screen this stuff when it can be used to set things up? I just don't get it. We just hear about this meeting through other characters. Reiju, who's seemingly also...
So here's the only thing that I get wary of with off-screens. If you want to off-screen minute details, I understand. It's the big ones that I don't like. Like off-screening Akainu versus Aokiji, problematic. Off-screening an altercation between the revolutionaries, Sabo, Fujitora, Green Bull, problematic. I don't think this is problematic. I don't think that's problematic. I think that's a minute detail of off-screening that really doesn't serve to bother me as much as it could somebody else. If you're looking at the intricacies of writing, I guess, but again, not really something I'm looking for. I'm not gonna lie. Not really something I'm looking for. Like, even the conversation with, conversation with Fujitora and Cobra, any of that, I'd be fine with this. But this one, I might. Matter of fact, you're right. Raizo and the little water joint in Wano, that should have been off screen. I didn't need that at all. All that entire flashback. Didn't need.
Saw her, commented to Sanji back in the castle that she seemed like a nice girl. I guess she didn't really believe that, but we have no way of even guessing at this because it wasn't shown to us or built up at all.
That's a nice argument, Senator. Why don't you back it up with a source?
My source is that I made it the fuck up.
Reiju wandering around these halls snooping on Pudding is random. We don't even know what her snooping was supposed to accomplish because there's no context. Was Reiju gonna confront Pudding in a dialogue? Was she just gonna stand outside of her room eavesdropping, waiting to see if she did anything evil? None of the Vinsmokes, Reiju included, even suspected there was going to be a betrayal that led to murder.
So here's where my justification for Reiju snooping around comes from. It's the fact that Reiju is the only one that actually cared about Sanji in the first place. And let's be honest, Reiju has been caught snooping around in their younger days when the Vinsmoke brothers would be beating on him. She would be snooping around. She'd be around the corner. We have history of Reiju snooping around just to see what's going on. Not to mention, again, she knows Sanji doesn't want to be there. She already knows Big Mom is shiesty. She already knows her family's evil. I mean, there's a lot of justifications that you can come up with and think, you know what? Something about this doesn't seem right, right? So there's so many ways to explain it. And if you wanted that explained, I feel like it doesn't really serve any meaning or purpose to me at all. If I find out why Reiju was snooping, it doesn't really change anything in the story for me. It doesn't. At the end of the day, we got to the goal that we needed to because it's a minute detail. A detail that I don't care about. I'll be honest, I don't. But I understand this is just one particular criticism of the writing. I think Drizzt is trying to show a pattern here. I think that's what he's trying to do. But I feel like some bad patterns like this are minute in the grand scheme of things. I don't think it's that big of a deal. I don't think that's big of a deal. Sometimes some people have a hunch. Sometimes you get an instinct. That's me. You call it copium, it is what it is. The copium hit. That's all I'm saying.
So, what this was supposed to accomplish?
Thanks for the follow.
As it's been the case, there was a pretty easy way to set this up though. Pudding's acting had a hiccup when she first encountered the Straw Hats. She had awkward dialogue about Sanji when she was talking about
shout out to Cheryl Neko, by the way, with the
Black
€5.
stuff.
Love to see you react and support.
It's a clear
Drizzt.
indicator that something is kind of fishy.
Of course,
a lot of the readers picked up on it. Oda could have included a scene.
I agree with that.
With Reiju or Sanji.
Super Latrion. But I just don't feel like they affect the overall. I just feel like they don't affect everything in the overall grand scheme of things.
Sanji, in which Pudding's acting had a hiccup in the same fashion, which makes Reiju suspicious of this entire thing and makes her in the right to snoop on Pudding or just the castle in general. This is all basic writing 101, but that doesn't really apply to One Piece anymore. Another reason this should have been included is because it gives Reiju something to do and
this video is not 6 hours, it's 4 hours.
Build off of for her role in the arc, which ends up being a non-existent when you step back and take a look at her in totality. Heading back to the Sanji and Reiju conversation, Reiju tells Sanji that she thinks all of the Vinsmoke should die and that she plans to commit suicide with them.
Okay.
She also tells Sanji to dip out and leave the island. Sanji asks, "What about the Baratier?" And Reiju just says, "Nah, it'll be fine."
Well, let me stop this for a second. So, Welly won 1991. Like how he treats people in the community, how he always has to start fights with other YouTubers, starts Twitter wars within the community. But again, this is just my reasoning, nothing more. I think the first point you mentioned, Welly, is wrong. Drizzt has never mistreated anyone in this community. Ever. And if he has, it's mainly been because of a meme and a joke. The only one you could arguably say that he's treated poorly would be Taekwon, because Taekwon got on his nerve. That's old history. So if you want to talk about that, that's fine. But in terms of how Drizzt actually treats people, Drizzt treats people with respect. It's his opinions that make people upset. So people associate his opinion with his character. That's not how you judge people. His opinion on One Piece, if his opinion on life and other things like that, that's fine. His opinion on One Piece has nothing to do with his character. And so I need people to separate that. Do not associate Drizzt's character with an opinion on a fictional story. It's not right. It's not normal. It's not normal. That's not normal. It's not healthy. It's a terrible way to live your life. Please don't do that. Don't do that. Do not do that. All right, let's move on.
Worry about it later. The person who just got lit up with a gat, taunted, her memory wiped, and then told that her entire family was getting duped into a murder fest, says that she doesn't think Zeph's life is in danger, and Big Mom doesn't care because she gave that as leverage over to the Vinsmokes. Okay, even if this makes sense at the moment, assuming that the murder of the rest of the Vinsmokes is satisfying enough for Big Mom to make her forget about Sanji if he were to leave, it's because of Big Mom's intelligence network that the Zeph info was found out. They gave it to the Vinsmokes to use because they were the ones handling Sanji prior to the wedding. Just because it was given to the Vinsmokes doesn't mean it couldn't be used by the people who gave it to them. And as the arc progresses, with the Straw Hats completely messing up the entire kingdom that Big Mom has, defeating her strongest people, destroying the things she cares about, like the picture of Mother Carmel, and making her look like a fool in the newspaper, why on earth would you assume that she would not want to get vengeance given how petty and evil she is? Wouldn't that make her more likely to go after Zeph?
Yeah.
Zeph's life becomes more of a liability as the arc ends than at the beginning. The Straw Hats had no idea that Big Mom would be coming to Wano until she was already there. It was a surprise. The Straw Hats weren't intentionally trying to make her angry enough to chase them either.
That's
the entire
true.
time between the
And
Straw Hats going to Wano.
You know, it's funny because that's something I have always wondered, is that why didn't Big Mom just retaliate and be like, all right, well, I guess Zeph's dead? Because here's the thing that annoyed me. Capone made this whole threat about how Big Mom has this crazy information network and they can find your loved ones and deliver your loved one's head in a box. After Sanji escaped and the German escaped and Big Mom and all that other stuff, why didn't she just say, all right, well, I guess we taking Zeph then? How was Zeph all of a sudden safe? Was it because of Germa? Because Germa wasn't there. So I agree with that. What happened with that? What happened with the Zeph consequence? How was that ever resolved? Because it wasn't resolved. I hope everyone's honest about that. It wasn't resolved. That is something we can strongly criticize Whole Cake for, is that. That I agree with.
Gave Big Mom more than enough time.
She got tunnel vision? Maybe.
She also has the resources to both chase the Straw Hats and send people to the weak East Blue at the same time. It just didn't
I've
happen
agreed to a lot so far. Yes, but I've also disagreed with a few things going. You know, I'm an open thinker, you know. I don't just inhale One Piece and say, oh, go. You know, I look at One Piece and be like, oh, I love it. You know, I love One Piece, but there's some things I don't like about it.
Oda was never
I don't know how long we've been here,
Zeph,
Gone, but I've disagreed with a few things up to this point.
But that's the author's doing. It's not the story logic. To add on to this, Reiju tells Sanji that the handcuffs are duds and don't matter, and they've never mattered. Bitch, what? Okay. So
Godfather music.
Look past all of the logical arguments you want to make, based on how much
That's
you
a
think
good point,
it makes sense in the story
Shreyas.
for these things to have or have not happened. There was one very
Godfather
obvious
music,
and important
yes.
reason why this is bad, which makes any other argument irrelevant. Oda, in one foul swoop, completely removes all of the stakes and tension from the things limiting Sanji in the arc.
True.
They were only there to cause momentary drama
Yep.
that doesn't lead to anything. This is called fake tension. The implication that something matters to the stakes of the story when it really doesn't. Whole Cake Island, as we'll come to find out, is littered from head to toe in fake tension. Now, don't get it twisted. Fake tension is used in a lot of stories, not just One Piece.
I was about
You'll
to say,
find
yeah,
it
yeah.
in some of the best as well. It can be a good storytelling device to set up real tension. As I
Agreed.
always say, it's the execution of this element that is vital. But it's not used well here, because now the entire subplot concerning Sanji's physical well-being was a complete waste of time. Zeph is a cool guy, and the dynamic between Zeph and Sanji is really good. So the implied danger to Zeph, one of the good things related to Sanji's character, means that handling it is a bit different than other things.
Yes.
You can't just throw it aside and make the
Agreed.
payoff and time spent torturing Sanji irrelevant and not expect it to be satisfying for the story. If there is no reward for the audience, then it makes everything feel cheap. And on top of that, this scene makes everything Reiju
Why
has been
mad?
doing make even less sense than how it already didn't make sense. Why didn't Reiju tell Sanji from the beginning that the hand...
Now, Theopap, you know, if you don't think I'm capable of processing my own opinion, you know, I would say that it's, and I know this is not what you were trying to do, so I'm not going to gaslight you, sir, but I just need you to understand how it could possibly come across. You're basically saying that I'm incapable of formulating my own thoughts and opinions, you know, and that I'm easily influenced. Or maybe it's the case that Drizzt is just making good points, you know? Food for thought, bro.
Cups were fake.
I don't think Drizzt is poisoning my thoughts.
She had no reason to not tell him since there was nothing preventing her from doing so, and we know her real desire was for him to leave all along. Judge never told her to not say anything because Judge didn't know. So why not tell him? What do you have to lose? Why does not telling Sanji not matter to the story? See how contrived this is starting to look? This was a lazy writing sequence that only hurts and belittles everything that came before it. We're not even halfway through Sanji's involvement in this arc and things are already pretty fucked up for some reason. Sanji leaves Reiju's room shortly after their conversation and he's basically chilling in a hall. At this point in time, he's supposed to be in his room like the rest of the Vinsmokes are, but the only reason that the guards aren't alerted is because Bobbin's little brother, for some reason, is sleeping in Sanji's bed and they think that it's Sanji, so they don't go out and search for him.
Okay.
While Sanji is off by himself, he comes to realize Big Mom's intentions, like he should have a long time ago. But now that he knows them, he can make a decision. After coming to realize Big Mom's intentions, Sanji is trying to accept his death and go along with it? Because he thinks it'll be the best thing to not incur the wrath of Big Mom?
Right.
What? Not incurring Big Mom's wrath is a completely irrelevant point at this stage. I know most people are going to try and say that Sanji's emotionally compromised mental justifies everything that he does, but there's gotta be a limit to how far you're able to push this before it reaches unjustifiable heights. There have been several instances already where Sanji should have been convinced otherwise. We have the enraged army, we have the Straw Hats running around the castle, we have some of them being captured. Maybe if Big Mom's word meant anything,
I do love this OST
so
though.
bad.
I do love the OST choices.
Big Mom said to Sanji was thrown out the window as soon as
I do love the OST choices a lot, Drizzt.
And thrown out the window twice after hearing that all of this was her setup to murder his family.
This makes me wish I was
Oda is going way too far in making Sanji look unreasonably stupid rather than creating empathy. So Bobbin strolls by and starts eating the meat from the bento that Sanji made, and seemingly out of everything that's happened, this knocks some common sense into Sanji, who retaliates against Bobbin with force, slamming him into the wall. Point of note here. I have no idea why Bobbin is utilized like he is in this arc. After Sanji runs away, Bobbin, who is one of the first Big Mom pirates introduced in the story, makes a speech saying that he'll take care of Sanji. And he says that even demons from hell make an appearance at Big Mom's tea party. Whatever the hell that means.
Whatever that means, nigga.
Right after the speech, Bobbin walks outside and gets gadded down by the clown trio, and that's the end of Bobbin. You know, it's really funny because during the weekly grind for this arc, lots of people were under the belief that Bobbin might actually be strong and someone
Bobbin the Fixer.
Good. He had some sleep powers and some shit. I don't know, man. Yeah. After running away from Bobbin, Sanji goes out to the field even after knowing
Rip
from the
Bozo
last
indeed
received that they were captured when the enraged army walked past them. Kind of weird, but I guess Sanji just had blind faith that Luffy would escape capture, then be here anyway because of his promise. Sanji does end up finding Luffy. He's a little sassy, and he provides Luffy the messed up bento. Luffy asks Sanji to come back with him, and Sanji says no for 3 reasons. 1. He can't because he disrespected Luffy. 2. Sanji says that Zeff is being held hostage, which at this point in time, Reiju told Sanji to not worry about it, so this isn't true.
Okay.
But Sanji is just making excuses to push Luffy away. And finally, 3. His family is going to be killed and he can't abandon them. Then Sanji tells Luffy to buzz off and Luffy gets angry. Then Luffy awkwardly punches Sanji. It's a pretty weird punch. I think it would have been better if it was like a real punch, but whatever. Luffy yells at Sanji to tell him the truth, which Sanji replies back with, "I want to go back to the Sunny." I want to take some time to analyze this section.
Okay.
This scene has a lot of good intentions, but I think it's missing elements in several places, which makes the message it's trying to deliver fall flat. At the end of Sanji's flashback, Reiju gives, quite literally, a redo of Saul's dialogue to Robin about how the sea is vast and someday Sanji will find friends who treat him right.
Nakama?
Oh, baby Robin was so precious, man. I know. Ah, baby Robin. Ah, I'm rattled. That flashback had me in tears, bro.
To tell the truth. Robin's flashback and the way it ties into Eni's lobby is beautiful. As a child,
Robin's flashback was
Robin's
so
only
sad, bro.
friend was
Oh
Saul,
my lord.
who ends up dying.
What a sad flashback.
Robin's entire life gets destroyed. Her mom dies. Her existence is labeled as demonic. She spends the rest of her life on the run, jumping from crew to crew, being betrayed constantly by people trying to take advantage of her. She's never able to find a true family. Saul's words of encouragement to her seem like a pipe dream because Robin's life is all despair. It's only when she meets.
Can we talk about when Robin said, "Are you my mom, bro?" Oh, bro, I fell to pieces. I fell apart. I fell apart, bro. I fell apart. When Robin said, "Are you my mom?" I literally just couldn't take it. I was like, my spirit is shattering. Oh, goodness.
Things begin to change. There's a reason why she left the Straw Hats voluntarily. She didn't want her past to end up killing people she'd started caring about. Robin
I'm definitely a
wanted to
family man.
Things were different. That's why she got so triggered when Aokiji started talking to her. Even after the Straw Hats tried getting Robin back, she refused. Robin couldn't stand the thought of the Straw Hats abandoning her, using her, like everyone else. Robin thought she was doomed to die one day. She'd rather sacrifice herself and die than live through the pain of believing that one day the Straw Hats will abandon her because of her burdens. Robin didn't believe in Luffy. She didn't believe anyone in the group would risk fighting the entire world just for her.
Yeah.
And that leads to one of the greatest moments I've ever experienced.
Take me back. This wasn't bad in the dub either. This wasn't bad in the dub either. Still get goosebumps hearing this, I'm not gonna lie. I still get goosebumps. I still get goosebumps at this whole scene, man. Oh, we might have to do a Water 7. We have to run back Water 7. It might be time. I don't know. It might be time. It might be time, bro. I might do a One Piece stream where we just watch all of like the best moments in pre-time skip, bro. You feel it every time. And the best part about it is when all the Straw Hats, I'm like, alright, let's go, let's save her, let's bring her home. I'm like, let's go. Even Chopper looked raw. Even Chopper. I was like, Chopper, like, I'm ready. I'm a grown man. Let's go.
Does not have
Need that
power or anywhere close to it. Sanji's life is nothing like Robin's. Reiju's dialogue to Sanji about finding people that'll treat him right doesn't connect strongly. As soon as Sanji left the Vinsmokes, he found a loving family in the Baratier with Zeph, a foster father who raised him for years. And then he found a second family with the Straw Hats. Sanji had hope prior to the Straw Hats coming into his life. This is also one of the reasons why Sanji's logic in this arc doesn't work as well as how it did with Robin in Eni's lobby.
Yeah.
Robin being in denial and pushing Luffy and the Straw Hats away makes a lot more sense because it connects with her backstory and her character. Sanji doesn't have the same excuse. Sanji was there with the Straw Hats when they risked it all for Vivi and Alabasta. Sanji even made a speech about it. Sanji was there when they challenged the world government. He knows exactly what the crew is all about, which makes his refusal to believe or trust them seem like bullshit. Attempting to redo a character arc without taking into context what the story has already accomplished is not a good thing to do as a writer. I really wish Oda hadn't copied Robin's flashback and moments into Sanji's here, because it was always going to run the risk of being looked at in a lesser light because it inherently draws comparisons.
Yeah.
Redoing an element of one of the most liked flashbacks in the story makes it feel cheap if you can't hit the same emotional chords. And because the writing behind these circumstances and things leading up to it aren't good, the same emotional chords are not hit. I Want to Live, Take Me Out to the Sea with You hits a lot harder than I Want to Go Back to the Sunny. And I say all of that to tackle one of the biggest issues with Sanji and Whole Cake Island, and Whole Cake Island in general.
I can't disagree on that one, unfortunately.
Afternoon, son. Hello, brothers. Son, we're looking for the maniac.
Have you seen this
Oh, it's the maniac!
When you bring in context from the rest of the story and don't simply look at what happened with Sanji in a vacuum, things get a lot worse. The way in which Oda handles the drama around Sanji's conflict with the crew is an insult to everything he accomplished with Usopp during Water 7. There are a lot of parallels between Water 7 and Whole Cake. We've gone over a few just between Sanji and Robin.
Really?
But there is also a great number of things that parallel Usopp as well. Usopp leaving the crew is the single greatest subplot Oda's ever written. It pushed and tested the crew at a level which hadn't been seen prior to that point. They were on the verge of collapse. Usopp had his reasons for why he did what he did. The Mary was a cherished gift from Kaya that Usopp had taken care of since the crew first started. And unlike everyone else, prior to Water 7, Usopp was the only person in the crew who had seen the spirit of the Mary. He didn't know what it was at that point in time, but there's a deep significance to Usopp's connection to the Mary and why he was the one to see it. Usopp viewed the way that the Straw Hats were moving on from an injured and incapable thing like the Mary as a commentary towards himself. He's weak. He can't do the things that people like Luffy, Sanji, and Zoro can. If the Mary is replaceable...
So let me... Wait. So maybe I wasn't paying attention. Usopp saw the spirit repairing the Mary before this whole altercation? Because I thought that was after. Or no, you know what? I'm trying to remember. Maybe I just wasn't paying attention at that point. He did. You said he did. Oh, it's Skypiea. Oh, you're right. You're so right. Okay. That's actually incredible writing. That's actually incredible writing. I didn't even think about that. That's kind of wild. Okay.
Then that meant he was replaceable. And this is what led to the situation between Luffy and Usopp to escalate the way that it did. Luffy didn't handle the situation well. The way he acted helped push Usopp farther away. But the circumstances help you empathize with Usopp. It's part of the reason why a large portion of the Straw Hats were instantly ready to welcome him back with open arms after Enies Lobby. Usopp was family, and much like the audience, they just wanted him to come home. Which is why what Zoro did in Water 7 is one of the best moments in the entire series. At the end of the day, Usopp crossed the line. It didn't matter that Usopp had snuck along as Soke King to help bring back Robin and Enies Lobby. It didn't matter how clutch he was when he sniped away from atop the Tower of Justice, or what his amazing speech to Luffy was like at the climax of the Lucci fight. Usopp having his own reasons and us understanding them didn't mean shit. He was wrong for what he did. And Oda wasn't afraid to put Usopp in the wrong. He held him accountable for his actions. It's one of the best things that authors can do to their characters. It's through the process of trial and tribulation, through atonement, that forge you into a better person. That's why Usopp needed to beg to come back to the crew. He needed to apologize for his misdeeds, not only for himself, to move on. But for the crew, Zoro was right. A crew that doesn't respect their captain can't survive.
All right.
And this is what is so frustrating about Sanji's situation. Somewhere between Water 7 and Whole Cake Island, the importance of character and continuity in storytelling was thrown out the window. This was something that was hotly contested and discussed for a long period of time as the arc went on. And there were 3 takes that were most commonly seen from people trying to defend the writing around Sanji. 1. People argued that nothing Sanji did during the arc was wrong. He was just trying to protect his crew because he's such a kind person.
Right.
2. People said that Sanji was wrong, but he was compromised and couldn't think straight. He had no good choices. He doesn't need to apologize to anyone because Luffy understands that's what's important, so no harm, no foul, Sanji goated. And at number 3, Sanji kicked Luffy to stop him from telling Usopp to leave the crew in chapter 331. So if Sanji kicked Luffy there and it wasn't a problem, then it shouldn't be a problem here for Luffy now or anything related to the Usopp crew drama. These defenses were, and always will be, shit. Sanji was 100% wrong. Just like how it didn't matter what the justifications were for Usopp, it doesn't matter for Sanji either. What happened, happened. This meeting between Luffy and Sanji is also not an apology. Just because things turn out okay, doesn't mean that this scene is something that it's not. And Sanji kicking Luffy in Water 7 is a false equivalency. That was before Usopp officially left the crew, and the important distinction is that Luffy was the person who was about to make a huge mistake and be in the wrong.
So, here is where I disagree. Listen. You're claiming that Sanji was 100% wrong because he put his hands on Luffy, because he kicked Luffy. Regardless of what Sanji's reasoning was for kicking Luffy in this moment in time, you could still make the assertion that Sanji is wrong for kicking his captain. Because we just used the same point that Sanji was wrong for kicking Luffy, even though he had his own justifications, he had his own issues with Zeph being held up. We had that reasoning. And in this scene here, we have that reasoning as well. To me, if we're going to use the state that Sanji was 100% wrong either way, Sanji is also wrong in the situation. So, what are we doing here? You can't justify Sanji kicking Luffy in this instance and then completely de-justify Sanji from kicking Luffy again. Because the point is that you can't put your hands on the captain. That's a sign of disrespect. That's a complete disrespect of authority. So I completely disagree with this point. In every sense, I disagree. I completely disagree. I completely disagree with this point. And this has always been one thing that I've disagreed with everybody. I completely disagree. You can't have it one way and then pick the other. I disagree.
The fact that Luffy handled the situation with Usopp poorly. He let his emotions get the better of him.
Okay, and then Sanji kicked Luffy in that situation the whole cake because he knew Luffy would not handle the situation correctly. Zeph's life on the line. The crew's life is on the line. Luffy is not going to listen to reason. You want Sanji to talk to Luffy? Luffy doesn't listen to anybody. Once Luffy sets his mind to something, that's all he's going to do. If Sanji's view is that what is right is to protect the crew and my father, who Luffy can't get to, by the way, you're in the new world. Who's going to save Zeph? Mind you, Sanji doesn't even know the handcuffs are fake. He still thinks Zeph is still in danger. So Luffy's not going to save Zeph. None of the Straw Hats are going to save Zeph. There is no contingency plan to stop Zeph from dying. Therefore, Luffy has to leave the situation in order for Zeph to survive. Now, you can make the claim that you're upset about the Zeph tension being fake, but that's after that point. That's after the point. That's completely after the point. Therefore, by that logic, Sanji had every right to kick Luffy in his own mind and in his own justification. Because in that moment in time, from Sanji's viewpoint, Luffy cannot save Zeph. He cannot. I don't care what anyone says. I don't care what kind of hopium, plot armor, anything. Luffy cannot save Zeph in that situation. I think Sanji was cornered. Therefore, I disagree with this entire argument. I disagree. I completely disagree. It's nonsense.
He had never been in that situation before.
And I hate that people do this all the time. I completely disagree.
To break the ice to
I
Usopp about the Mary in the argument that there is blame on both sides. This is why Luffy is the one who apologized after being kicked, and not even Zoro had a problem with it. Everyone was involved in the situation. Sanji was heated in the moment, but he wasn't overstepping his bounds. Usopp then went over the line, changing everything. Now, if Sanji had kicked Luffy, mocked his dream, made fun of him, then proceeded to beat the shit out of him to the point of being bloody and unconscious, then we'd have a different situation in our hands. Speaking of, there's only so much blame that can be placed into Sanji's character until you inevitably have to bring Luffy into the discussion. It's Luffy who exonerates Sanji from any and all accountability. Luffy hits Sanji for not being honest with him, but Luffy himself doesn't say or even think that what Sanji did was wrong. He reaffirms all of his actions, and because Luffy does this, Sanji never has to come to grips with the error of his ways. Luffy acts in a manner that says,
it's not about what physically happens. We're talking about the principle. You cannot draw the line in the sand by saying, and this is what Zoro said specifically, you cannot let Usopp join. You cannot put your hands on the captain. That's the whole point of this whole scene. If we're not gonna draw the line in Sanji kicking Luffy into the wall for his own opinion on what Luffy should do, has nothing to do with Luffy, has nothing to do with the crew, has nothing to do with what's right and wrong. It's based on what Sanji's opinion is. You judge Sanji's views and actions in that moment to be correct. You did. We all judge that together. It's not objective, it's subjective. And from Sanji's point of view, that was the right course of action. In this case, to Sanji, this was the right course of action. Luffy knows Sanji. Luffy understands. Luffy got the full scope of the situation and chose to understand where Sanji was coming from. The caveat with Usopp is that Luffy never saw what happened with the whatever it's called, the spirit of Mary. Usopp's passion for Mary was not understood to the full degree in that moment in time. Same with Zoro, same with everybody else. Therefore, I don't think you can objectively say Sanji was 100% wrong at all. That's not an that's a subjective take. That's subjective. And due to its subjectivity, there is definitely a case where you can argue that Sanji was not 100% wrong in that moment. Therefore, I don't think this is an issue. To me.
It's okay for
Clobber,
Sanji
I'm not saying that name,
or
I'm sorry.
anyone
Clobber
to do what
Man.
he did. And that's because Luffy will not
I'm not saying that name. I'm
and
sorry.
does
I'm
not
saying.
care about his role as a captain in the story, which goes against the entire Usopp subplot. Luffy and Sanji both agreed with Zoro about how a crew should function, and they both went through to the end with how they agreed that they should act with Usopp, to the point of being willing to sail away and leave Usopp stranded on Water 7 alone, to prove what disrespecting your captain and leaving the crew means. I know it's easy to say, oh well, it's just Luffy being Luffy, but that is not
probably
a
not
good enough
TBD.
excuse.
I'll probably
in the
just leave the
situation.
stream up.
We aren't playing pirate games here. This is serious. Do you care about the story? Do you care about its messaging? Because you should. Oda completely ignores what he's done with his own character writing. He makes it so that no character learned from the past and move forward with it. Luffy is in the wrong in forgiving Sanji in the way that he did.
I disagree.
I've noticed that
I disagree with that as well. I disagree. I think that is right in line with Luffy's character. I think that's right in line with Luffy's character. I disagree. I'm not going to compromise the character of Luffy for the sake of adding some extra, I don't know. Luffy seems to be a static character for me, and I think Luffy's personality and the way he carries himself, his ideology, is not meant to be changed or challenged. It's meant to affect other people, and that's mainly been my main view with Luffy. I don't think Luffy's not meant to be someone who changes their ways and their view on life. Luffy is a agent of change in others. So from the way I see Luffy, I don't think it's inexcusable for him to forgive Sanji in that moment, because I think, one, that's in Luffy's character. I think, one, Luffy completely understands where he's coming from at the same time as well. You know, like bro, like Luffy went into Impel Down. Luffy freed Crocodile. He freed so many criminals that have hurt so many people. Why? Because his justification was saving Ace. You know, at the end of the day, bro, like, people are gonna do things that will be conventionally deemed as wrong. But in the case of Luffy, Luffy is 100% right for what he did. He did what he had to do to save Ace. Now, ultimately, Ace died, you know, LOL. But at the same time, I don't see it being any different than, like, how would Vivi feel if Luffy teamed up with Crocodile and helped Crocodile escape? Like, how would Vivi feel about that? Do you think Vivi would be like, oh, Luffy, I can't forgive you? How could you do this? I just don't know. I just don't know. I don't know.
This happens a lot with newer fans whenever they reach Whole Cake. And it happened a lot during the arc itself. You would hear people say,
but that's what I'm saying, Vivi understood.
If Zoro was there, he would have blank. It's not a coincidence that this is brought up, and it's not wrong either. Zoro would have been pissed at what happened on both sides. And this has nothing to do with any bullshit Zoro versus Sanji agenda. Surely, I've ripped on both of these characters enough to avoid that cancer. Those guys are friends. They hold each other to higher standards. Past the thorny exterior, Zoro was concerned for Sanji after learning what happened in Zou. And given their relationship, had Zoro been there, he probably would have reacted more harsh than he had ever been in the story. Sanji would have essentially betrayed their friendship, the silent agreement between them, that moment in Thriller Bark, and what they mean to Luffy. And it goes deeper than that, because it'd be worse for how Zoro would have reacted to Luffy. Luffy allowing Sanji to disrespect him, only to follow through on making the mistake that Zoro prevented him from making with Usopp, would have been an issue without a doubt. This wouldn't have been something that was ignored. You'd have to be completely ignorant to think otherwise. Zoro wasn't lying when he said that he'd be the first one to leave next time if Luffy fumbled again. Shit's got nothing to do with agenda. Nothing. But you can only go so far with hypotheticals. The fact of the matter is that Zoro wasn't in Whole Cake, and word of it never spread around. But there was a character present in the arc that played the role of Zoro. At first. It's the one character that people like to ignore when talking about the Luffy and Sanji drama, and that's Nami. Yep. Nami is the one that held Sanji accountable for his actions after Sanji beat Luffy. Nami was within her right when she slapped Sanji. Nami also knew, prior to coming to Whole Cake, that Sanji had his reasons for doing what he did. She was the person arguing with Zoro about making light of other people's issues. Nami was correct when she told Luffy that it didn't matter what Sanji's reasons were for hitting him. He's wrong. I think it's understated how loyal Nami is to Luffy. When Nami slaps Sanji, she slaps him for Luffy and because of the betrayal. She's angry at the lengths he went to in order to prove his point against Luffy. After Sanji leaves and the weather on the island gets bad, the enraged army is on its way.
My only issue with that statement of what Nami's saying is that Nami doesn't know Sanji's situation at all. Nami is completely ignorant in that conversation. Again, that defeats the purpose of Sanji's reasoning.
Nami is the one who begs Luffy to move to safety to avoid unnecessary damage. But something
Nami's completely ignorant of the situation. That doesn't really do
Nami,
anything.
the perpetual scaredy cat, stays with Luffy. She sticks by her captain through thick and thin. to the bitter end. At the point in time that Nami and Luffy were fighting the enraged army, it's a life or death situation. They have no reason to believe that the main goal is for them to be captured. Yet Nami's there, by Luffy's side, ready to die. This is one of the realest things in the story. After Sanji rejoins the crew, Nami tells Sanji that she'll never forgive him, and there's a gag centered around it. And people like to believe that this entire concept is all just for laughs, but that's wrong. Nami, at this point in time, still believes that what Sanji did is a fucking issue. Nami says this is not the time and place to resolve the conflict. She knows and understands that these things need to wait until later because the crew is in danger. There is a real possibility of consequences if infighting happens. It's best to get to safety first. There's no way you can argue that this is all just a joke. This is a writing promise built into the conflict to get a true resolution.
Just a little, but still ignorant to the gravity of the situation.
There was room for Oda to do a complete follow-through of the crew drama. The fact that Sanji didn't apologize, that he hit Luffy, that he went overboard, and even the fact that Luffy forgave Sanji. This all would have been okay, because Nami seemed like she was going to be the character that would reinforce what we saw in Water 7. This all could have gone somewhere. But Jesus
Peckham
Christ.
explained? But wasn't
Oda
that after? That
completely
wasn't
drops the
before.
ball.
That was after. Unless they mentioned Zeph.
Nami's issue with
You have to
Sanji
let
is
me
never
know.
touched on again for the rest of the arc, nor is it touched upon ever. Not even in a gag.
And if
The
that's the
crew
case, why
drama
didn't she let
is
Luffy know?
forever dropped in an arc where one of the messages is supposed to be that Sanji being a failure is a good thing. All of the good-natured people around Sanji act as if he's fucking perfect, but he's not. And that's not a bad thing. Sanji being wrong isn't a bad thing. It's okay for your good characters to make bad choices. That's what Usopp did. And he came out at his peak by the end of Water 7. And you know,
And why
something
didn't she
that
tell
added
why
a
didn't she tell
layer
Luffy the full
to crew
situation?
drama in Water 7 is that Usopp spent a lot of time in Enies lobby with Zoro. You know, the same guy who would then go on to argue for Usopp not being allowed back into the crew without consequence. And did you guys ever notice that when Usopp finally apologizes, Zoro has one of the most important reactions? Zoro, arguably more than anyone, wanted his faith in Usopp to be rewarded. He wanted to believe, but not enough to ignore the principles that the crew had established for how they should operate. The same should have been the case with Luffy, and that should have been the case with Sanji, Nami, and Whole Cake. They deserved to hash out their issues. They deserved to spend time together. Nami
Appreciate you,
deserved
Daniel.
to have
Sorry,
the
David.
spotlight in keeping the crew together. Sanji deserved redemption. Sanji should have risen and shown above all of his flaws to come out on the other side as a better man, having conquered his demons. It could have been the single best character writing Oda's done since the pre-time skip. He had everything set up, the drama, the conflict, the desperation, everything. He had it all lined up to hit a home run, and he walked away from the plate, went home and played Fortnite instead. And we get this slop fed to us. Sanji is a worse character because Oda refused to hold him to the same standards as Usopp. Luffy is a worse captain because he didn't learn anything from Water 7. And Nami, Jesus, Nami is shit on. Her loyalty, nothing. Her status in the story, nothing. The potential for this writing, gone. This is the only serious crew-related plot point in the entire time skip, and it's one of the worst things Oda's ever done. It's unspeakably bad. How anyone can spin this into a positive is beyond me. Make no mistake, folks, this is awful writing. In no way, shape, or form should this receive a pass. That was...
So I've fought with Drizzt on this occasion quite a bit, and I fought with a lot of people on this. And this is always, I understand a lot of criticisms about Sanji and One Piece in general, and especially with Whole Cake. I think that this is something I think I'll always fundamentally disagree on, because for me, I think the focus on how Luffy is supposed to react to Sanji's actions is not the focus. I don't think this has anything to do with Luffy. I think Luffy realized it has nothing to do with him at all. With Usopp, his genuine beef was with the crew and with Luffy for abandoning Mary. In the situation with Sanji, it literally had nothing to do with Luffy, the crew, any of them. Usopp had legitimate beef with Luffy, with the crew. It's not the same situation. Sanji only kicked Luffy to get him away from danger. No matter how twisted and weird the execution is in that behavior, that is not the same thing. And I don't know how many times I have to tell everybody, it's not the same thing. And it makes me upset because, again, Usopp had beef. Sanji did not. You cannot apply the Usopp situation to Sanji. If Luffy said it out of his own words, oh my God, Sanji, you're in more pain than me. He didn't yell that to Usopp's crazy ass when he was sleeping, slumped on the floor. He didn't say nothing to Usopp when he was on the floor. Usopp ran away. Usopp wasn't even crying on the floor. Sanji was bawling. Luffy saw it. So no, they're not the same. Yes, I disagree. No, I don't think it's bad writing in that sense at all. I completely disagree. And you saying calm down? I'm a passionate man. Don't tell me to calm down. I'll scream louder if I have to. You come to this channel to watch a passionate man. Not a butterfly, not a Boy Scout, not a quiet man. I'm loud, black, and African, and I'll yell if I want. But I'm cool. I'm chilling. For the most part, I'm actually just chilling. I'm just a loud man. That's all it is. Usopp was crying. I mean, he was crying because of them bruises. He was crying because he was hurt, because he was in bandages. Next person to tell me to calm down, I'll calm you down with a timeout. Go ahead, say it again. I'm toxic. Remember that. Go ahead. All right, now I need to calm down. Okay, we're good. He said, I disagree, Jay, but keep going. My neighbors, you're right. You're right, not so slick. I should worry about my neighbors. He said, tone it down. Intrigued clap. You think you are slick. Someone time out intrigued clap. Give him like 10 seconds or something. You're not slick. You try to change it. He said, yo, you are not slick, man. Watch yourself. Okay. Anywho, yes, I disagree. Time out your neighbors. I just might time out my neighbors. I just might time them out. You need to reduce your energy. All right, now everyone's with the wordplay. All right, so chat is toxic. There it is. I think at this point, there's 13 minutes left to hear. The whole Sanji portion is over in that's another hour. I got work in the morning, and I'm gonna watch an episode of Westworld. So I think I can promise to cover the German. I can cover the excuse me. I can cover the other half on another Twitch/YouTube stream. But let's do up to this point. Let's do up to the German point. Then we'll cover the German point. We'll cover Sanji's kindness and Sanji the final chapter. And yeah, we'll just make this a part two of the stream. I'm not gonna keep the stream out too long. Is this season of Westworld good? I'm actually watching it now. I'm catching it up. I'm still on season 1, so I couldn't tell you. You are completely ignoring the point that Drizzt made about Sanji having no justification for him starting to hit Luffy out of nowhere because he just could have talked to them. Shiro Neko, I completely disagree with the notion of Sanji talking to Luffy because I think Sanji already knows, and I think all of us know, talking to Luffy and trying to convince him of his plan in the first place, Luffy's not going to listen. Luffy's never going to listen. Luffy's not going to listen to reason. Jinbei had to put his hands on Luffy just to convince him about Fishman Island. Did we forget about that? Did we forget that Jinbei had to go to blows with Luffy over the Fishman Island strategy? Are you serious? Jinbei tried to talk to Luffy and that didn't work, so they started throwing hands. So if Sanji knows Zeff is about to die, Luffy has no contingency plan, why would I even bother talking to him? Why would I talk to him? Jinbei put his hands on Luffy so many times. I get not one apology from Jinbei. So no, Shiro Neko, I disagree. I disagree. I disagree. I disagree. I disagree. Jinbei wasn't a crew member at that point. I don't matter. He should have apologized before joining the crew. Jinbei should not have been allowed to join the crew unless he apologized for putting his hands on the captain. No way. Not my straw hat. Absolutely not. I disagree. That's all I'm saying. Anywho, he said, thanks, Jay. Anytime, lad. Everybody's got to apologize. Anytime you put your hands on Luffy, apologize. I'm definitely generalizing. I'm 100% generalizing. Because I'm pretty sure that's not what Drizzt's point is when I'm aggressively generalizing. But, you know, we gotta throw some straw mans out here. You think Glam, you think Luffy's actually gonna listen to that? You severely overestimate Luffy's ability to understand and read the room. Luffy doesn't read the room well at all. Luffy isn't that stupid? Yes, he is. Luffy couldn't even listen to the reason of Jinbei, who's the most reasonable person out of everyone. You think he's gonna listen to Sanji? Yeah, okay. Crocodile writing an apology letter? Cap. But it's been great. Wow, there's like 700. Why is there 740 people on this Twitch? It's like, why is so many of y'all in here? You know what? I appreciate the love you showed. I didn't even see how many people on YouTube. But thank you guys so much. Appreciate you guys. I love you all. It's been great. Don't forget to follow me on Twitch if you haven't already. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, of course. And I'll keep the stream up. I'll keep the stream up so you guys enjoy. I have a video in the works, and yeah, you know, more to come. So again, appreciate you guys, and I'm gonna see you guys once next time I'll stream. Sunday stream. All right, y'all, I'm out.